Joining you now is Michael Oren, the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. Ambassador, thank you very much. Are you confident now? There are a lot of twists and turns. Israeli politics are notably confusing. But Bibi Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, known as Bibi, is the master of survival in these contexts. What we've been told and certainly read from Minister Ben-Gvir on Twitter was that he is against this deal, that he will not bring down the coalition, but he will resign if it goes forward with the trading of the prisoners, because the prime minister will not agree to resume hostilities, resume the war, in other words. And he thinks that that is a dangerous step. That said, from my understanding, Netanyahu has support from several other members of the Knesset, opposition leaders, Lapid and Benny Gantz. And so this will not bring down his government. Is that your read of it?
It is. Good to be with you, Andrew. And there's nothing about this that isn't immensely complex and deeply agonizing for the people of Israel. Keep in mind that, again, they may get 33 hostages back over the course of 6 weeks. We don't know at the end of the day how many of those 33 are alive, how many are coming back in an ambulance, and how many are coming back in a box. And that will leave almost 60 hostages dead and alive in Gaza over the next 2 phases of this plan. Very, very complex. And Hamas is still fighting. Hamas is still shelling border communities. Hamas is still killing soldiers, something between 40 soldiers killed over the last 6 weeks in Gaza. So Hamas is very much there, and Hamas will declare victory. So it's immensely, immensely painful. And on top of all that, freeing these Palestinian prisoners. You know, it looks like a one line on the screen here, but it's hundreds and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners who have killed Israelis. And the families of those people murdered have to understand, you know, why is this guy going home and getting a hero's welcome when our loved ones are still on the ground? And in addition to getting approval from the inner cabinet, the broad cabinet, and the Knesset, you also have to approval from the Israeli Supreme Court, because the relatives of those victims are now going to appeal this decision, this deal, to the Israeli Supreme Court. With all that, I think you're absolutely right. Benjamin Netanyahu is a political genius, the ultimate survivor. If he wants it, it's going to go through. The question is, what does he want in the long run? Yes, the first phase calls for a 42-day ceasefire and an Israeli withdrawal from certain parts of Gaza, but Hamas wants a complete withdrawal. It wants the end of the war, which means Hamas wins, and it's going to hold on to those hostages, the remaining 60 hostages, until that's done. So the big question is, what happens after this phase, the second phase, the third phase, and a bigger question after that, what is the position of the Trump administration?
And a lot of credit is being given by many people, including hostage families, to Donald Trump for really laying down the hammer, as much on Netanyahu as on Hamas, over which he has a little less influence. They're more influenced by Israel's successful efforts against Iran, Hezbollah, the Syrian collapse, so they've lost their patrons, pretty much. But in any case, Donald Trump and his envoy, Steve Witkoff, were given credit from a lot of people, including, I talked to Secretary Blinken this week, and he said that Witkoff was terrific in helping close the deal. That said, and the 3 hostages who are coming out first, potentially on Sunday, are 3 Israeli women who we're told are in terrible shape, have been abused, assaulted. There's unspeakable crimes against them, and that is going to reverberate among the Israeli public as well. But the Americans are going to have to wait. And there are 3 surviving Americans, we've been told, that 2 of them will come out in this first period. They're going to have to wait days, even weeks, into this first 40-day period before they come out. And then there's a 3rd American, Egon Alexander, who would be in the second phase. And getting to that second phase is going to be difficult. So
Indeed.
There's a lot of angst, frankly, among the American hostage families. But what they're saying publicly and privately is that they're just happy for the families who are getting their loved ones back, as well as the 4 Americans' families that are waiting and hoping and praying for the remains of their loved ones to be returned to.
And this is why this event is so mixed with joy and anguish and anger and pain. Think about all the literally hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have fought in this war, who have lost friends. Many of them come back irreparably maimed and saying, OK, what did we fight for if Hamas survives? So there's going to be anger, there's going to be confusion and regret. And then the big question is, will Hamas actually keep the ceasefire? Remember, there was a ceasefire in place on October 7th, 2023. There was a ceasefire in place in November 2023 during the first hostage exchange. Hamas broke all those ceasefires. It has broken every ceasefire there's ever been there. We've reached. So will Hamas keep the ceasefire? You could have a situation where all of a sudden there'll be some rockets on an Israeli community, and Hamas will say, well, it's not us, it's somebody else in the Gaza Strip. And we know how that game works out. Or there'll be an ambush of Israeli soldiers, and they'll say, well, it wasn't us, it was some other breakaway faction. I don't know whether the Israeli government, Benjamin Netanyahu, are counting on the fact that Hamas will break the ceasefire, and then they'll have an arrangement with the incoming president, President Trump, that says, okay, the United States will give full backing to the Israeli forces to complete the destruction of Hamas. And that is what some ministers are actually saying in the state of Israel today. Or whether it's even a broader understanding about Iran.